Welcome back. Today I wanted to discuss the alcohol and whether it has any place when we are in the process of studying metaphysical teachings, and most of all, working on applying such wisdom in our lives. Now this video is going to be mostly focused on alcohol, but it actually counts for all drugs, since there's many people that study the mind, but they still like to indulge in alcohol or drugs. Now is that actually detrimental? That's the point of this video, to kind of discuss it, and then I'll leave it up to you to see if you're still using these substances, whether they are actually holding you back or not. Now alcohol, like other things, is of course a drug, and it's a very useful thing to objectively look at. Most adults around the world consume alcohol regularly. It doesn't mean they drink every single day, like a full-blown alcoholic, but they may in fact be drinking enough that it is already messing with their consciousness in such a way that we are unable to fully apply the power of our own minds to get the results we want. Now for this video I want to work with two teachers in particular, Neville Goddard and Emmett. Why? You may be wondering, well, what is so special about them and this subject of alcohol? Well, first of all, Neville Goddard was a big drinker himself throughout his adult years. It seems after he met his mentor, Abdullah, who taught him everything about the power of imagination, he became a regular drinker himself. He was taught by his mentor that by removing the quibbles in his mind, he could drink safely without it poisoning him. It is still up for debate whether that is truly smart, because back in the early 1900s, we have to remember that alcohol addiction wasn't yet fully known as it is now. With Emmett, it is very interesting to discover that one of the core founders of the Alcoholic Anonymous group gives credit to Emmett's teachings for helping him and others achieve and maintain sobriety back in the day. We are talking about two things here concerning both teachers that have happened many decades ago by now. The teachings concerning the mental equivalent is very valuable in order to make a positive change in our lives. We learn first and foremost that we have to change our mind about something in our lives before it can physically change for the better. Alcohol addiction is such a thing, and it is especially important for the person suffering from this in their own lives, that they should fully grasp these teachings to set themselves free more easily and effectively. So it seems clear from these 2 points already that Neville was supposedly into drinking, and Emmett might have been someone who didn't drink or rarely drink at all. I could not find any conclusive data on this. In fact, the proof that Neville Goddard drank a lot is also hard to come by. In some lectures, I can vaguely remember he would mention he liked drinking alcohol, but the real proof seemed to have stemmed from some interview done by his close friends closely after he died, who described Neville as a heavy drinker, who loved to drink martinis before going on stage because he loved the way alcohol made him feel. Apparently he would sometimes even joke that he never liked to moderate on things, especially on something called alcohol back in the day. Whether this is 100% accurate or not remains a mystery, but in reality this isn't very far off from the situation we are facing currently on a global scale. Most people consider alcohol a very innocent thing. We drink it to be merry, we consume it during social settings. It takes the edge off things for us. But the real question becomes, would we be even more powerful and effective in applying our imagination if alcohol and drugs in general were to be removed from our lives entirely? There exists a lecture given by Neville where he discussed someone who was addicted to alcohol and was able to heal himself from the problem by applying the power of his imagination. The person achieved a state where anyone could put alcohol in front of him and he would no longer drink it since he didn't have any desire left in him to do so. So it seems Neville at least didn't suggest people would drink alcohol if it was detrimental to their well-being. So ask yourself the question, is it detrimental to your well-being? How will you know? By honestly measuring how you feel about this substance, and by honestly looking into how much you are drinking on a weekly basis, and also by honestly admitting how it makes you feel when you use and the reason for why you are using it. If people are very honest with themselves, they may discover all sorts of nonsensical reasons for them to consume alcohol or drugs. And alcohol as a substance is a depressant. This is a well-known fact by doctors around the globe. If we clearly know that we are consuming a depressant, something that sedates the central nervous system, would out of this activity follow any logical foundation for it to make it easier for us to apply metaphysical teachings about imagination or the mental equivalent? No, there's no logical reason to consume alcohol. Not even a single drop, if by its very nature it is meant to depress the central nervous system. We want to invoke the power of our full divine imagination, and we can only do it fully if there's no abnormal drugs running through our veins, causing a chemical imbalance. Perhaps at this point you're taking what I'm saying personal. Perhaps you feel like it's a personal attack on you for consuming alcohol while studying the wonderful teachings of Neville Goddard or Emmett. I want to make it clear that it's not a personal attack of any kind. I don't think there's anything wrong with you if alcohol is currently a part of your physical life. I mostly want you to simply consider the far-reaching effects it has on your own consciousness. Don't be stubborn like me, for example. Because for a long time, when I was still drinking alcohol regularly, I knew it wasn't making me feel good whenever I had a hangover. I knew something was off during those hours or days when I was going through it. But somehow I thought, well, if people like Neville could drink, then so can I. That's how stubborn I was. What I should have done way earlier was realize that in all honesty, if Neville was a big drinker like he described, his mentors being one as well, they both probably were addicted to alcohol to some degree. But again, in their time alcoholism didn't yet exist. It was a giant mystery in fact why some people could not stop drinking. It seemed as if some people were simply physically different than most, causing them to be unable to stop drinking. Of course, by now science has become aware that alcohol or drugs simply alters the brain itself, and if it's done often enough and for long enough, the user of such drugs can no longer feel normal if there's no alcohol or drugs in their system. It literally takes time for them to feel normal again without it in their system, because the brain has to readjust itself to a life of sobriety, just like how it had to adjust itself to a life of drinking, which we simply describe as having a certain level of tolerance to the substance. Some can drink more than others due to their tolerance. The conclusion I got to for myself is that I'm better off as an adult with no alcohol or drugs in my system. Not just because it's technically healthier to be sober, but also because it makes it easier to focus my mind on these divine teachings of imagination. If I cloud my mind with alcohol or any other drugs in that very moment, I can no longer fully and clearly apply my own consciousness in order to get the results I want. Some people will of course say, but after I drink some alcohol I feel fine. Sometimes I feel even better than before I took the drink. I became more creative after drinking or taking drugs. It seems to benefit me when I'm taking it, so I don't agree with you. That's what some, or perhaps many people might have to say about my video. But in all honesty, to me that stuff sounds like they are believing an illusion. It's like we are saying we need a physical substance in order to explore and experience our spiritual nature. But the physical world, including the body, is and should actually be under our control to begin with. To me, stuff like this is simply a reflection of the fact that humanity has lost its way and has forgotten how to connect with the core of their own being without the use of outside substances. So if you've been experiencing supposed benefits by drinking, simply ask yourself what would happen if you could achieve those benefits by properly applying the power of your own divine imagination. You would obviously be able to apply the law of attraction more effectively and specifically, because your mind is entirely being aimed at what you want to manifest. It is no longer going through abnormal withdrawals, no matter how mild they may be. You are able to fully focus on a daily basis on what you intend to achieve and manifest. Now that is some real power to wield throughout your physical journey. I just want you to be mindful. Metaphysical teachings demand we learn more about the nature and power of consciousness by studying it, by becoming aware of our inner powers. As long as we consume outside substances that cause a mental change in us, we are always at a risk of not fully grasping metaphysical teachings, because our minds are operating 100% in this present moment. They are being dragged all over the place due to the nature of these drugs we can freely consume. For most people, the use of alcohol is ruining more than they even realize. It can be happening for you in this very moment. Yes, it may be uncomfortable, but in reality, perhaps you are not able to fully get results when applying metaphysical teachings simply because you are consuming alcohol on a regular basis. If you remove alcohol or drugs from your life, you automatically start developing a sort of laser focus. You become able to focus more intensely on the good you desire to manifest, and lo and behold, it becomes easier to improve the results in your life. Now really consider the role alcohol or drugs play in your life and whether it's really as beneficial as society has you believe. Like many philosophers have pointed out throughout history, in many cases following mass consciousness is actually a bad thing. It doesn't help us improve effectively, and alcohol is in reality an accepted drug by the masses all around the globe. That is how we all tend to become familiar with it and afterwards think there's nothing wrong with using it on a regular basis. But there is something wrong with it. When we were born, most of us didn't drink alcohol and so we never missed it. We could fully focus our wonderful human imagination as children, and now we are called upon to do it all over again as adults. For most adults, they will discover that just by removing a socially accepted drug called alcohol, they suddenly come in the position of fully controlling their imagination again, just like when they were children. However, this time around they can learn to use their imagination to build visions of what is desired, and they start to manifest these visions because the connection between their heart and the heart of God is no longer being clouded by drugs. It's like any form of drug is actually creating some interference between us and the mind of the universe. However, certain drugs do make it possible for us to more fully feel in touch with the universe. This has a simple explanation though. Some drugs remove those roadblocks that are laid within our consciousness. For many people, the way they think and are using their minds in general is already the biggest reason for them not experiencing the unity they seek with the universe itself. So some drugs simply numb that part of their consciousness, and lo and behold, they suddenly experience a deep unity with all of creation. The fact still remains we can experience this unity entirely sober, and it's more precious and useful to us if we do this sober, so we don't suffer from any withdrawals after the drug wears off. This, to me, is very beautiful, and why it's worth being sober as we're studying metaphysical teachings and exploring more about the power of consciousness. You'll discover that by being sober it becomes easier for you to apply the teachings of Neville Goddard and Emmett. Don't overthink this. I'd say give it an honest shot. If you dare to study and apply metaphysical teachings in your life while you're entirely sober, let's say for a period of at least 3 months, you will find out you're becoming more effective at getting the results you wanted all along. You start feeling better and better about yourself and your life. Everything will improve, I can promise you that much. I think at the end of the day, asking yourself the question, what would Neville suggest or what would Emmett suggest, in relation to the use of alcohol or drugs might provide you some interesting insights from the depths of your own being, especially if you've been honestly studying their material. You will either find reasons for drinking, or you might suddenly find reasons for stopping entirely. It can go either way, but ultimately this life is meant to be enjoyable. And we will always be most joyous if our bodies are functioning at peak performance. A drug like alcohol can never provide consistent peak performance, for it will always eventually tear down the very body that is consuming it. Now that is the nature of all drugs, no matter what you're using. Remember this, you need your body while you are in time-space reality. Be good to it, use your mind in the right way, and watch some wonderful things happen in your life, as you're finally able to apply these teachings with a clear mind and get the results you've always dreamed of. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.